Today we're going to talk about the changing face of code enforcement in Hot Springs. And with me today is Chief Jason Stacey of the Hot Springs Police Department, as well as Kathy Selman from our Planning and Development Department. Welcome to both of you.
Morning,
Thank
Terry.
you. Good morning.
This is an exciting change for our city, and we're going to get to tell people why. I'd like to start off with you, Kathy, and ask you, what kind of feedback are you getting from residents in neighborhoods about the current state of code enforcement?
Well, the current state of code enforcement is not getting the A's and B's we would hope to get from our residents. There are some things that we know we can do better. And in looking at some of those things, one of the things that came up is that a more active partnership with our police department offers a lot of opportunities for us to help get things in order more quickly.
Okay. Can you summarize what you would like to change about the way that we currently implement code enforcement?
Yes, we would like to get to the point of enforcement more quickly. The method that we've been using assumes that most people, maybe all people, eventually will come around to deciding that code compliance is important and they're going to do it on their own. At this time, probably 85% of folks who have some type of a complaint issue on their property will voluntarily comply once they know what the code requires. But that hardcore 15% is not responding to what we've been trying to do. And one of the things that may have contributed to that is that we provide so many notices and so many second, third, fourth chances that people don't take us seriously. And we need people to understand how important to Hot Springs safety and livability code compliance is. So we'll still start off with education and awareness, a warning, but then we are going to write a citation. And when a citation is written, the fines are likely to be significantly higher than what we've trained people to think will be the result. In the past, many times a fine might be $25 after 6 or 8 months of trying to work with a citizen to get their property code compliant. And now the first fee will be $100. For a second violation, it will be $150, and for the third violation, it will be $200. So that is a huge change, and we're hoping that incentivizes people to move more quickly.
Certainly. Jason, what do you think some of the problems stem from?
From the past, I would definitely say, maybe a lack of pride in ownership. Owners really just taking pride in their property, keeping their grass cut, maintaining the outside appearance of their houses. 50% of the properties in Hot Springs are rentals. So a lot of these owners may be living out of town, living out of state, and maybe they have tenants in there that are not keeping up with the outside appearance of their houses and letting them fall in disrepair. And we want to address that. We want to work with these owners and tenants and explain to them, what our city ordinances are. And just like Kathy said, really try to build from the bottom up.
So what is the driving philosophy behind this change?
Well, it all evolves around broken windows theory. What that theory really discusses is that if one house in an area falls in disrepair, whether it's tall grass or i.e. a broken window, what that does is essentially invite the criminal element into that area. Because what it's telling people is that, we don't really care about, our property. We don't care. We have no pride. So, come in, set up shop, and then that obviously perpetuates crime in that area. And so this is really a grassroots movement. We are really kind of attacking crime at its foundation.
So the changes include district court, which is that's an important partner in this situation. What would those changes look like?
Well, I was mentioning earlier the number of second, third, and fourth chances that people get. The district court judges have tried the gentle approach with people too, and have said, you know, when somebody appears in court, is this person in compliance? The inspector or the attorney says no, and the judge would say, well, come back in a month or 2 months, and we'll see if you're in compliance then. That, as I mentioned, doesn't seem to be working for some of these people who need more of an incentive. So the judges are committed to this effort to get Hot Springs cleaned up. We don't want to become a dirty, ugly city with neighborhoods where nobody wants to live or walk. And the judges are on board with this, and we'll be seeing fines assessed probably at the first appearance. There won't be a second or third opportunity. So this is a big change.
Certainly, because the fines that in the past have been assessed might be later on down the road.
Yeah, very
perhaps
much so, yes.
a repeat appearance.
Yes, yeah. We want to take more of the approach that someone would see if they run a stop sign and get a ticket. When you get to court on that kind of a ticket, nobody says, have you stopped running stop signs? The evidence is there that it happened, and if someone is found guilty, that's it. They get their fine, and we hope learn a lesson. And we're trying to take that same approach with everything with regard to our public health and property codes.
And we would love voluntary compliance. You know, we'd love 100% voluntary compliance with everyone. But obviously not everyone is going to voluntarily comply to these efforts. So, you know, we have that enforcement function as that last resort, and that's something that we're going to be starting to utilize in the future. You know, as far as the police department's perspective, you know, I have assigned a full-time detective, you know, who will be working with Kathy in code enforcement. He's our nuisance abatement officer. So when we have properties or businesses with multiple violations, multiple calls for service, multiple arrests out of that, you know, area, you know, he will be involved. And he will be working with our city attorneys and filing abatement cases on those properties. And, you know, as you well know, we use that with a lot of our drug houses. You know, after we go in, conduct an investigation, then we can file an abatement and actually board up the piece of property.
And
So
the city's had a very successful nuisance abatement program for a number of years.
we have, and that is really a priority of the police departments. And you know, we're just not going to tolerate that anymore. We're not going to tolerate drug houses within the city of Hot Springs. We're not going to tolerate nuisance properties either.
Continuing that line of enforcement, what are the changes going to be as far as your code enforcement personnel?
That's a good question. We will be working more closely doing what we're calling mini sweeps. We used to do a clean sweep, and we still do, that takes a month or 6 weeks, where we spend a week going into an area, a defined area, you know, with boundaries, and trying to make personal contact with everyone who's at home, leaving a notice if they're not, explaining what the code requires in terms of keeping the yard clean, not parking cars on the grass, you know, that you can have an unlimited number of junkers and parts cars on your property. And then we follow up with solid waste coming through to pick up big items that people want removed. We're going to be doing that more frequently and in smaller areas, and very often accompanied by our police liaison so that we can get a good picture of what's happening in a neighborhood, what needs to happen to make it a better place to be, to live, to work, and we hope get the results more quickly and in a more lasting way than what has occurred in the past.
You're mentioning some of the benefits, and that was going to be my next question. What are the benefits of this heightened initiative?
Well, I think an attractiveness improvement is one thing, but that goes to livability, to a feeling of safety, and we hope that people will begin looking at our close-in neighborhoods, which are walkable, offer easy access to downtown. We want to see those neighborhoods become what they could be, that they will be desirable places to invest, to purchase a home, to raise a family, to bring young families in where we're not seeing them now. We have wonderful schools in our city, and the neighborhoods where people can walk to those schools are not being valued as they should be. So the people owning property there need to demonstrate that they are proud to live there and that they understand their role in making this work, and that Hot Springs becomes an even more attractive place to live.
Yeah, it's essentially enhancing the quality of life for every
Yes.
resident in Hot Springs.
Yeah.
Is this initiative already underway?
It is. We actually kicked it off, I think, the first week of September through some restructuring from both of our organizations, and it has been very productive since then.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting to know that the future is bright if we can work together, and people will gradually become more aware of the heightened initiative. There are great possibilities for an increased quality of life for our city.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're committed to seeing that through.
Great. If people have any questions, is there a number that they can call?
Yes, they can call the Planning and Development Department, 321-6650, and let us know how we can help.
Well, thank you both for explaining the partnership, how it's going to work, how it's going to involve district court as well as planning and development and the police department. Please do contact the city if you have any questions about this. We look forward to seeing the changes in the coming months and years ahead. And next week, we'll bring you more city news.